I'm only going to explain this once. This never happened because my brother was gay. It happened because everyone didn't accept the fact that he was gay. My brother, Nathan, and I were twins. We both had brown hair, fair skin, but our eyes were different. I had brown eyes while he had blue-gray eyes. And of course, I was a girl, but that didn't stop Nate from hanging around me all the time. He never made any friends growing up. Because he was thinner and smaller than most kids, he'd usually get sick a lot, so I was his best friend. It wasn't easy for him to admit his sexuality either. He only told me at first when we were in middle school, and he practically begged me to keep it a secret. Now, don't get me wrong, Nathan wasn't one of those flamboyant gay guys who would dress themselves like women and talk about fashion or something like that. Nathan was just an average kid who just happened to like guys instead of girls. But then Dad found out when we were in high school. When you live in a small town in a farming community in Nebraska, there's nothing much to do other than school, work, and religion. Everyone knew everyone in town. They pretty much knew when someone was going to the bathroom where we lived. So when Dad found out, everyone found out, and everyone shunned Nathan out of everything. No one wanted to be around him. Nobody wanted to involve him in anything. I remember everyone giving him a dirty look every time we went to church. Dad basically yelled at Nathan for not being a real man. Mom didn't do anything, but I knew deep down inside she was ashamed of him. All the boys at our school would practically beat the life out of him when the teachers weren't around, and I would always bandage him up afterwards, only to have to do it again the next day. I was the only one who came to hug him as he sobbed in his bedroom at night. During winter break, we had nothing better to do, so I took my brother out on a little biking adventure. He seemed to enjoy following me. It was a nice break away from the rough life he was suffering from. We rode into a nearby forest on the edge of the county, where we went to the river to sit by the riverbank and just chat like we've always done. "I wish I was normal like everyone else," Nathan whispered as he put his head on his knees, his eyes watering up with tears. I sighed. "Don't think like that, Nate." "But Katie..." "I said don't think like that." I grabbed his shoulders. "Look, everyone may be against you, but you got me to protect you. And as your sister, I'm not going to let some stupid kids in some stupid town treat my brother like shit. You're a person, but you just happen to be different for one reason." Nathan grew quiet as he looked at the river. I reached over and hugged him. "Let's get out of this town," I whispered. "Katie," Nathan stared. "I mean it. I've saved some money. We could wait a few more years. We're almost 18 anyways." "But where would we go?" "I don't know, but definitely any city than the stupid town. You just need to promise me that you'll be strong these next few years. Okay? Promise?" Nathan stared at me. Then he smiled. "Okay." Oh, how I wish things would have stayed like that. On the way home, we went through a forest path that had bushes on one side and a sewage ditch on the other. Nearing the end of the path, Nathan sped up, so he was in front of me, looking back and flashing me a smile. I smiled back before I realized the group of boys coming out of the bushes, rocks in their hands. Nathan saw my face and turned to see the first few rocks hit against his body. One jammed into the front wheel of his bike, forcing him off into the ditch. As the boys left, I stopped and yelled his name before sliding after him. When we reached the bottom, I found my brother laying on the floor, his bike ruined. I shook him to see if he was breathing, which he did after a few wheezes. I checked for broken bones, but the only damage it looked like he took was just a few bruises and an open wound on his left hand. Nate lifted his hand and cringed from the pain, holding it in his other hand. The thing that worried me the most wasn't how bad his hand was, but the decaying animal that was nearby. I didn't know if it was a raccoon or a cat or whatever, but it had patches of hairless skin that made my skin creep with a nasty bacteria eating at the flesh. I ignored it and helped my brother out of the ditch. Nathan was stitched and bandaged at the hospital. Mom was happy we were okay, but Dad seemed pissed at the medical bill for a hurt homosexual. He drove us home and kicked Nathan's ass inside, telling him to go to his room. About a week after the incident, Nathan had the stitches removed and he was free from his bandages, revealing a long, deep crimson scar along the side of his hand. I told him to put some antibiotics on it when we got home, but he said he was sure that it would just peel off within a week. About a month later, I woke up one night to the sound of someone entering the house and Dad rushing his way down the halls with the shotgun. He yelled out Nathan's name and practically turned on all the lights and woke up Mom before setting Nate on the couch. Dad, of course, asked him where the hell he had been, because he'd never showed up for dinner earlier. Nathan looked down at the floor, not responding. When Dad asked the same question, only angrier, he confessed that he was with someone. My parents looked at each other and then back at him. Nathan explained that he met a guy named Beau sometime earlier in the month. I was shocked. I was with my brother practically every day, so the fact that he met a guy without me seeing him was surprising. He told our parents that Beau was a nice kid who wasn't around these parts, and he was asked to show him around. Dad glared at him and told him to go to bed that instant before walking off with Mom back to their bedroom. I stayed and looked at Nathan's hand. It was bandaged, but unlike before, it was bandaged up to his index finger. I asked him about it. He just said the scab got a little painful and he put more medicine on it, and then smiled. I tried shrugging it off as we both went to bed, but I never stopped thinking about it. From there on, Nathan kept sneaking off at night to see Beau. On some nights, I could hear the two voices coming from his bedroom. One that was Nathan's, but the other one sounded too masculine to be my brother's. I assumed it was Beau, so I would try to open the door and see them, but Nate kept it locked from the inside. In the morning, I would find Nate smiling over his cereal, but then I would notice his bandages again. I wasn't sure if it was me, but I swear he kept using more bandages for the scab. Nathan came up to me in my room when Mom and Dad were out and told me that he really thought he and Beau were in a serious relationship. I was happy for him, and I told him that it would be great if we met Beau. His face grew a little pale as his hand involuntarily scratched at the bandaged hand, but he told me Beau was working during the day and at the night he did some college work online, so it would be nearly impossible for us to meet him. I said I understood and stopped talking, but I couldn't help but notice my brother still scratching at his bandages. As months passed, the kids at school got even worse. They found out about Beau when they caught Nate writing Beau's name all over his notebook, so the physical violence got to its peak. My brother began to shut himself in his room all day, only to come out to eat, to use the bathroom, to go to school, and to sneak out to see Beau. He hardly smiled at anyone, and he began to wear his jacket nearly every day. At the same time, a putrid smell started to rise in the house. It smelled like an animal died underneath the porch, but when Dad went to check, he only saw the family dog alive and well. Mom assumed it was the fridge and cleared out the potential expired food from it, but the smell never went away. I never told my parents, but the smell seemed to be coming from Nathan's room, because it was stronger around his door, and he never seemed to allow Mom to clean inside. It dawned on me that my brother hadn't taken a shower in a long time either, but I didn't have the heart to tell Mom about it. He was already dealing with so much already. Despite me trying to help him, I could tell he wasn't in the best shape of his life. He seemed thinner and much paler, and he didn't appear to get much sleep either. Mom asked me if he was okay because he seemed so upset and because she just had to buy more bandages. I told her he never seemed to talk to me anymore and that Beau seems to be the only one who wants to talk to him. Dad interrupted us and told us that Nathan was just being a bitch and he has to solve his own issues, just as Nate walked in the kitchen. I just looked at him and he gave me a very blank expression and walked away, back to his room, locking the door behind him. Dad ignored him and told Mom that we needed to keep the house locked at night because of a string of robberies happening in the area. He said that the neighbors were reporting food, valuables, and money being stolen in the dead of night, so he just wanted to make sure that we didn't get robbed. Dad just looked at me and said I needed to tell Nathan about this because he didn't want to speak to the homosexual he raised. I remember being up late at night a few days later because of this project at school. I was practically surrounded with books trying to finish up this assignment underneath the shabby lamp on my desk. I had finished and decided to go ahead and sleep in my clothes, figuring out that I could bear one missed shower. I was just about to fall into a deep sleep when I heard a cringing, blood-curdling scream. I shot up in my bed, wondering what in God's name could have happened, and when the second scream went out, this time I realized it was a man's scream. I ran like hell to my parents' bedroom and busted through the door. My eyes weren't yet adjusted, so the only thing I noticed was the smell of blood. It hit me like a truck. When my vision did manage to adjust, I noticed my parents laying dead on the carpet, the blood being soaked into the fabric. I nearly puked at the sight. The sight of 2 people stabbed in the chest, the face, the arms, Dad having his intestines spewed across the floor. The amount of blood. Oh, God, the blood. It was everywhere. I was in tears at the sight of all this, but what I had noticed was a figure standing above them, facing the wall opposite of the doorway. I could tell this person was wearing a jacket and some jeans, but what stuck the most was the moonlight hitting their left bandaged hand perfectly from the window. "Nathan?" I called out. The figure flinched and slowly turned its head. From the darkness of the jacket, I could see my brother's right eye looking over his shoulder, his eye full of tears and dark shadow under his socket. He looked scared to death, like he saw a ghost. "Katie! Oh, God, Katie!" he whimpered. "Nate, why did you—" I covered my mouth. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. I closed my eyes, thinking this was all some terrible nightmare, and if I opened them again, it would go away. But it never did. "Katie!" Nathan started crying, but he didn't face me directly. "I swear, Katie, this wasn't me. Beau did this. Beau did this." "Why would he?" I asked. "Because he loves me, Katie, and he didn't want to hurt me anymore. He doesn't want anyone to hurt me anymore." Nathan was sobbing. "He doesn't want anyone separating us. He just wants us to be alone. He wants to be with me forever and ever and ever." Nathan kept blubbering the word ever between sobs. But he didn't face me. He just looked me over the shoulder. "Nathan, come on, we should call the police. Tell them Beau is a murderer." "He's not a murderer!" Nathan yelled, turning around to face me. The moonlight did a beautiful job displaying my brother and Beau. Beau was never a guy to begin with. I realized there was no Beau at all. Beau was the scab Nathan got months ago. Beau was his left arm and the left side of his face. Beau was the crackling in different areas, the blood and the pus oozing in between. Beau was deep crimson with hints of Nathan's pink flesh showing through some of the deep purples and revolting greens. If Beau wasn't there to cover my brother's arm, then there's nothing at all. In some areas, I saw my brother's flesh ripped down to the bone. Beau had gotten to my brother's hair and removed most of what was on his left side. Beau had gotten to Nate's eye. It wasn't blue-gray, it was a deep red, and the eyeball partially eaten, deep within the dark socket that was left over. Beau ate most of Nathan's cheek, too. It had gotten to his teeth and tongue, because all I saw were sharp white pearls within black gums, right next to a disintegrating tongue. "Isn't he just perfect?" Nathan asked, an innocent air about him as he smiled, Beau's fangs glistening as he did. I was speechless. I took a step back. There was a little voice in my head. When I got the scab, it said its name was Beau, and he wanted to be my friend as long as I took care of him," he muttered, caressing Beau with his hand. Beau seemed to respond with a gurgling sound and pulsating before my eyes. I'd never wanted to run so much in my entire life than I had right there. "He said he loved me, so he kissed me, and sometimes he sucks on my neck. Last night we had sex, actually," Nathan continued, his face blushing. I wanted to puke. But Beau said he knew that Dad and Mom never liked me just because I like men. He told me he could get rid of them. Beau told me he could get rid of all of my problems, that we could run away and see the world. I really wanted that, Katie. I really wanted that," he explained. I swallowed hard. "But I just didn't think Beau would do this. But I swear Beau means well. Beau just wants us to be happy," Nathan cried, still smiling. I had to say it. I just had to say it at this point. "Nathan, we need to get you to a hospital." Nate stared at me, tears forming in his eyes. "What?" "I said we need to get you to a hospital. There's clearly something wrong in your head." My brother just stared at me, confused and scared. No. Yes, Nathan. I take a step forward. You're delusional. It's obvious you're having some psychological issues, and this thing, his name is Beau. Beau. The scab. Whatever. You need to get rid of it. It's draining your health. I can't get rid of Beau, Nathan sobbed, tears flowing from his right eye, and blood flowed from the other. Please, Katie. Please stop. Nathan, we have to remove the scab. It will be nothing but trouble. I don't want to see you die from an infection like this. Nathan shook his head side to side, trying to cover his ears, still sobbing. Katie, please. Please, Katie, you're making him angry. He's getting angry. I was having enough with my brother being stubborn like this. I was resorting to having to yell at my brother. I never in my life yelled at my brother. Who is getting angry? He stopped. He just stopped crying. In silence, he stood up straight, his weight shifting to his left side. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When Nathan looked back at me, I could tell he was different. The look on his eyes told me that the crying boy had left, and in his place there was a different man. Me. I took several steps back, but as I did, he came forward, a wide smile across his face. Your brother and I want to be together, Katie. I took more steps back and made my way down the hall. He followed my movement with just a gruesome smile, looking at the edge of the knife he held, his eyes full of bloodlust. He told me not to hurt you, and I did what he said. You should have been grateful, Katie. He kept walking towards me, dragging the knife against the wall. I just kept my eyes on him. And I was kind to your brother. I truly love him, Katie. I hadn't had a lovely host in such a long time. We'd entered the main room, where I stood at the other side of the couch, trying to keep my distance away from him. But then again, you want me gone, don't you? Out of your brother's body, out of your brother's mind. I swallowed hard, sweat dripping from my forehead. My legs were urging me to run, but I still didn't. You want your brother to suffer again and be lonely forever? Well, sorry, Katie. I'm staying with Nathan. I was paralyzed, as he suddenly stood directly in front of me, smiling. His eyes seemed to glow deep within that socket. Run, Katie, Beau whispered, lifting his arm to strike me with his knife. And that's exactly what I did. I ran out of the door and into the farm field. I didn't look back behind because all I could hear was Beau's laughing. I hopped over the fence for our farm and ran down the road. I ran until I reached the town square, where I collapsed onto my knees from exhaustion. I could hardly breathe anymore, but when I turned around, all I could see was that Beau never chased after me. I felt so relieved. I turned back only to see Beau kneeling in front of me. Found you, Katie. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. I blacked out as soon as he took one good stab in my stomach. When I came to, I found myself in the hospital. I stood straight up in bed from the shock, thinking Beau had gotten me, but he wasn't there. The room was empty, except for me. I looked underneath my hospital gown to see bandages wrapped around my torso, various bruises. There was a mirror on the side of my room. I looked at it, its reflection revealing that I had a black eye and more bruises on my face. Through the mirror, I could see the tears of happiness and grief rolling down my cheeks. A sudden noise shook me, and I turned only to see the doctor opening my door to my room, allowing a police officer inside. He sat down next to my bed and decided to explain how I got there. A citizen was walking in the early morning who had noticed me lying on the ground. They called 911 and got me to the hospital. Apparently, at the same time, the police have been busy because of multiple calls of homicides in the neighborhood, all of the victims being boys from the high school. Each boy had several stab marks in their chest, arms, and face. But the most eye-catching trait of this new killer was the way he wrote, Beau X Nathan Forever, across the walls in blood, and had a long scar he would have given every corpse, directly along their left hands. He also explained that our neighbor found my parents slaughtered in their bedroom with the same criminal profile as the boys. He told me that he knew Nathan was behind these and the events and the past robberies, and asked me if I knew where he went. I told him that I didn't, so he just nodded and said the entire county was looking for him. There was no luck. He seemed to disappear. Even with the bloodhounds after him, they had lost the scent when the search team reached the forest on the edge of the county. He smiled and wished me luck with the recovery and the therapy I was scheduled for later. He left me by myself thereafter. I stared at the door closing before I realized my right hand was itching like crazy. I came to the realization that the doctor had bandaged up my hand, and as soon as I saw it, I removed it in panic just to see what was underneath. On my right hand, there was a long, deep crimson scar.
Together.